The goal here is to give you tools that you can already start implementing immediately after this webinar that are going to help you to start decluttering your life in both the physical as well as the mental side, right? So let's begin. Who am I? This is a question I've asked myself for many years, and I've struggled with it. I didn't choose my name. I didn't choose my religion. I didn't choose my ethnicity. And to make matters more confusing, being someone of Indian descent and being born and raised in Belgium in Europe, which was where I lived for 19 years and went for school and everything, the people in Belgium told me I was a foreigner because of how I looked. And when I went to India, which is where I'm originally from, but never lived there, they called me a foreigner as well because I didn't quite speak the same way and have the same habits. So this led to even more confusion when it came to my identity. So the way that I got around it was I said, let me make other people happy, because that's what I thought was the right thing to do. And I always wore this mask of making other people happy. But as you may already know, that's impossible. No matter how good a human being is, there will always be someone who does not like him or her. So even though I tried so hard to make everyone happy, I did have people where I did not succeed, and that in turn would make me upset. And the focus was always on others and rather than on me. So what did that mean for me? This is how I felt. Because I'm trying to make everyone happy, I'm always being pulled in different directions. I'm being pulled by my family. I'm being pulled by my colleagues and my business partner. I'm being pulled by my community, and I'm being pulled from within my own mind. So I'm being pulled in all directions, and that's just leading to a lot of stress and anxiety. But all that changed one day when I was traveling with 7 very dear friends of mine, and we were in Europe. And while we were there, we decided that we were going to create a safe space. What is a safe space, you may ask? That's a space where you are not going to judge the other person, and you're not going to tell anyone what to do. You're only going to share experiences. And why do we do that? That brings us more on an equality mode, right? Because if I tell you something, you might interpret it as I'm better than you. So no telling each other what to do and no judgment. And during that process, something magical happened. Because I didn't have to worry about making others happy, I started removing that mask. And all the other masks that I was wearing, whether they were masks of I'm better than you, or I'm not, I deserve more in the world, or I'm not getting enough, or I'm worse than you. There's so many different masks out there, but I unmasked from all of them. And I became 100% authentically me. And I experienced magic. Why? Because I didn't have to try. It was so easy being the best version of yourself rather than the second-rate version of somebody else. So during this time of being myself, I asked myself, wow, I feel good, not good, I feel great. I'm having so much fun. It's joyous, I'm happy. And I remembered, and the last time I felt like that was as a young child. So as I'm coming back, I want to share this experience with my wife. So I write this down on the flight back to Dubai. And all of a sudden, as I'm thinking, I realized that as I removed all these masks and these barriers, which I kept in front of me, which I thought was for my protection, when I removed all of them, I had nothing but happiness and joy, and I felt free. So I realized what the power of vulnerability became. And I said, I want to be like this when I come back to Dubai. And that's how I want to live my life. But I realized we live in a world where we are getting judged. Now, even when we're getting judged, even if I can't get to 100% of what I felt that day, but even if I can get to half of it, I've already succeeded. And I'm going to be in a much better place than I already am. And that's when I decided to make myself the #1 priority. Right? Before, because I'm trying to make other people happy, my priorities keep changing. One day it's the family, one day it's work, one day it's, myself, one day it's the community. And that caused a lot of stress, right? And a lot of issues. but I made myself the number one priority. Now, you might say that's a bit selfish, but when I become a better person, my energy levels are greater, they're stronger, and I start radiating a much different level of energy. And that's what I start attracting in my life. Okay, so by becoming a better person, I'm positively impacting everything around me. So what you're going to get from this webinar are the following. And these were the results that I gained from 4 years of decluttering my life. More time to fill with your passion and priorities, greater focus and awareness, creating stronger and deeper relationships, starting each day on a high and more energy, and finally living with love rather than fear. So what I do is I'm going to be providing you tools that can help you break free from your mental overload. Now, some of you may recognize what this is on this image, but if you don't, back, in the early times, in the black and white films, and perhaps when there was color as well, in the prison movies, they used to have this ball and chain wrapped around someone's leg to prevent them from escaping. Now, we have a lot of these around our leg, and we're carrying all this clutter with us wherever we go, and we're still expecting to achieve great results. But how can we expect great results and expect to soar when we have all this weight that we're dragging along with us? So the tools that I'm going to provide you today and that I provide in my full workshop are tools where you can start cutting these ball and chains one at a time so that you can run faster, soar to new heights, and become the amazing person that you're meant to be. So I want to start, however, by highlighting one misconception. Happiness lies in the external world. If that is true, read these statistics from the World Health Organization. Over the decades, and I'm 40 plus, over the decades, I've seen that even though life has become easier, medication has advanced, technology is far superior than what it used to be, mental health challenges have shot up. Look at the first one. 20% of the world's children and adolescent population have a mental disorder. That means from all of us on this call today, I think we're about, I don't see the numbers, I think we're about 50 already. That means 10 of us have some sort of a mental disorder. And even when you have something physical, you're happy to talk about it, you don't feel so shy. But I remember when I was facing some mental challenges and I was, speaking my mind, people would say, oh, just don't be silly, think positive, you're fine. People would shy away from addressing the issue at hand, and so would I. Because if someone is not receptive, I then keep it to myself and I internalize it. But the good news is all the answers lie within. And as we declutter our lives, we're essentially removing all this noise to go deeper within and start to see things with more clarity. So the process that I've come up with is a 4-step process. And for all of you that do target practice, whether it's shooting or archery or anything else, the target, if you hit the outside of the target, which is easier because it's bigger, right? That's what we're going to focus on first. And as we move to the center of the target, it gets harder and harder. And that's why I've come up with this process. So we're going to first start with decluttering from the material world. Then we move to the body, then people, and finally to the mind. And what the bullseye is, all this will help you essentially to find your purpose, your why, right? Because as you remove the noise and you start to see more clearly, it will help you to get towards your why. So let's start with decluttering from the material world. So this is myself, my wife, who's in the light blue at the bottom of the picture, and 4 other ladies, which are from the UAE. Now, all of us, this is the And while we were here living on this mountain for 7 days in tents and, very basic food, challenges with sleeping, very basic things that we had, right? I asked all these ladies, I said, what do you miss the most? And the 3 most common answers, apart from family, were running water, a warm room, and a bed. When was the last time you were grateful for having these things? We're so focused on, I need this, I need that, I need a watch, I need a new pen. Really what you need, or is it a want? Because let's call it what it is. When you're living on the mountain, you know what your needs are. Your needs are shelter, food, and clothing. That's all you need. These are the basic necessities of life. And some of you may argue that perhaps internet should be included in there as well. But apart from that, all the others are wants. So the next time you say, I need this, ask yourself, do I need it or do I want it? Because I don't really need it. But if you have a desire to get it, that's fine. But call it what it is. So one of the tools that I implemented on myself is I wanted to go through an exercise. I stopped buying for 4 months. I came back one summer and it was September and I said, till the end of the calendar year, I'm not going to buy anything. And when I say nothing, I literally mean nothing. I'm only allowed to buy things which are consumable, like food, right? But other than that, and because I play a lot of tennis, if I broke my strings, I could replace them. But if I broke my racket, that was not allowed to be replaced. So I stopped buying for 4 months. And it was incredible. It was such a phenomenal journey for me. I stopped thinking about buying stuff. And I also realized how easily I would buy something. Like I'd go somewhere and buy a magazine, I'd buy a book, I'd buy something small. It's not about the money, it's about just purchasing something. And what I used to do is I used to make a list. I'm like, you know what? I'll put it down on a list. And if I really, 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 really still want it, in January, I'll go ahead and buy it. But as I moved through this process, I realized that many of these things, I just had a desire initially, but then when I really thought about it, I didn't really need it in my life because it didn't serve a functional purpose, which was a necessity. So now I'm not thinking about buying stuff as much. I'm not being able to do other things, which I find to be my passion. I'm saving money, that's a bonus. So I ask you is understand the difference between want and need. And there's so many times when I used to be an impulse buyer, I just say, you know what, if I still really want it a few days later, I'll go out and buy it. But then that impulse usually just died away. And now when you're at home and you have restricted access, this is such a great time to declutter your physical space. Think about it. If you're not using something, if it has no functional purpose in your life, it can life. And during this time of Ramadan, which is also a time of giving and community, what a great time to go through this exercise and give to those who have less than you. So how about we make a conscious effort and say, I'm going to start to declutter my house, one room at a time or one cupboard at a time, take everything out, split it into 3 piles. One is, I use this, I'm going to keep it. The second pile is, I can't remember the last time I used it or really doesn't have any functional value in my life. Let me give it away to someone and put a smile on their face and give back to the community. And the third one is the pile. I think I want to keep it. Maybe I can give it away. Don't stress on it. You know, this is not supposed to be an exercise that is adding stress and anxiety to your life. If you're unsure about something, there's some tools I can share with you. One, if it's a memory that is the reason why you want to keep it, ask yourself, does the memory disappear when you give the object away? The short answer is no. The memory is always going to remain. So ask yourself, if it's still not serving purpose in my life and I can give a smile to someone else, maybe it's time to let this go. Or if you're still struggling, put it away in a box or lock it in a cupboard. Now, if you don't open that box or that cupboard for the next X number of months, maybe 6 months or something, clearly you don't need it, or clearly you don't want it. So just give it away. And there's something magical that happens when you give it away, right? You lighten your load. I know for me, I mean, I'll give you a big example. If you own a car, for example, you have to renew the insurance, you have to renew the registration, you have to do the maintenance, replace the tires, make sure it takes up time and energy. And so does everything else that you own. It holds a space in your mind rent-free because you're not generating income out of it. And the moment you give it away, You're no longer having to think about it or take care of it. And now space in your mind has opened up, in your subconscious mind. And now you have the opportunity to fill it with whatever you want. So these are my tips on the decluttering from the material world. I now want to open it up for Q&A on this particular aspect of the 4-step process before I move on to declutter the body.
Thanks a lot, Sahil, for that, for those tips. To be honest, it was very kind of insightful. And as you were speaking, I was kind of reflecting onto my own life and my own kind of day-to-day and how I tend to keep track of things, or what I choose to keep and what I don't. And again, this webinar and this session would be of most value the more open we are. So again, just to kind of reiterate and echo your point, and I would like to invite everyone to kind of share their questions and comments and suggestions on the Q&A function as well as the chat function. And as you guys are kind of putting that in, Sahil, I think one question that kind of came to my mind that I was curious about, and I think this is something that that I suffer from as well as my mother, right? So I live in a 1-bedroom in Sharjah alone, and typically when it comes to every time I have to do a decluttering exercise, it is genuinely a stressful one. More or less, it's anxiety on there will be one day where I'm gonna, yes, I did not use this object for the past year or so, but there will come a day where I will badly need it and I won't know what to do, right? And it becomes, it's more anxiety driven than anything, which is the reason why I have random things in my house, right? And I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on that, because I'm sure, as you mentioned before, there are other people that are kind of thinking this, or maybe go through a similar thought process, and I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on that.
Great question. So let me address that. Let me give you my own story, right? I've decluttered my closet 4 times. And every time I thought, I've taken everything out. There's no chance I can take anything more out of there. And the last attempt, which was just about a month ago at the, once we were in lockdown, I still managed to fill a small suitcase full of stuff. So don't stress, right? Go start with the easy items. I fail to believe that there's absolutely everything in that apartment of yours that you need or you want. So go with the easy things, right? Say to yourself, I'm going to remove 3 or 5 things, keep it a small number, and I'm going to give to, because this no longer serves a purpose in my life, I want to give and put a smile on someone else's life, right? And once you get into that habit, when you do round 2, somewhere down the line, you might go, hey, you know what? This was challenging to get rid of before, but now I don't see why I'm keeping it. Perhaps it's time to let this go as well. So it's a process, right? A lot of people tell me, oh, I'm trying to declutter my room. There's too many things. Make it simple, make it fun. Start with a corner, start with a cupboard, start with one area, start with the things that you're happily and easily able to give away. Don't make it stressful. The purpose of this exercise is not to add stress, it's to remove these things from your life, to remove the clutter. And the second thing I'd say is ask yourself, does the item make you happy or sad? Because there's some people, and I know that many of you are guilty of this, and I'm guilty as well, right? I've kept things thinking I used to fit into this, and I haven't fit into it for the last 2 years, but I will fit into it again. And every time I see that item, it actually makes me upset because I'm thinking I can't fit into this piece of clothing anymore. But why on earth would I want to keep something in my closet that's making me sad? So one day I just said, I accepted me for who I am. And I said, you know what? This is me. If one day in the future I do eventually get to that size, or I don't, it doesn't matter. And if I do, I'll just buy something again. But to keep it in my closet only to make me sad and upset makes no sense. So I've shared some techniques here that you could probably implement and hopefully work towards going through the step one at a time.
Definitely, and I think you've kind of shared something that was relevant to one of the questions that we've gotten. And I think one of the audience members tends to use the Marie Kondo decluttering methodology. And his question was, do you think that's kind of the right approach to this? in terms of if it does not, I think it's if it doesn't spark joy, then it doesn't have a place in your place or in your house. And just wanted to just to kind of address that question. Wanted to know your thoughts on that, and if there were other things or other improvements that they could kind of do to that methodology and to that thought process.
Absolutely. So yes, look, it has to spark it. Look, some things yes, I do agree with it on the whole. It absolutely makes sense. But there's some items that you have in your house that don't necessarily spark joy or no, or they're not, causing any harm, but they're just functional because you need them in the house for whatever reason. So it's not about everything that has to spark joy, right? I mean, you might have, I don't know, a toothbrush. The toothbrush may not spark joy, but you still need it to brush your teeth. I mean, I'm just giving you a simplistic example. But in theory, yes, the spark joy is very important, that it should not be the opposite. That's what I would say. It's about, it should not drain you of energy, right? And it shouldn't create a negative space for you. And remember, no matter how something makes you feel, I have things that I've given away that gave me joy, but I knew that I wasn't using them as much, and I realized that there's someone out there who's not as privileged as I am. They don't necessarily have 3 meals a day, or a permanent address. Maybe they're moving a lot. And I said, even though it's not serving me because I hardly use it, even though it sparks joy, I still gave it away because I realized the joy I will give someone else is far greater than the joy it will give me. And remember, we live in a world where it's not about the I, especially in these times, and especially during Ramadan when we're thinking a lot more about, inner reflection and the community. It's a time to give. So if something is not very needy or useful in your house, in your life, how about giving it to someone less fortunate than yourself? So yes, spark joy is important, but I would say think about the benefit you're giving to someone else as well, and make sure that you don't keep things that are, sucking energy out of you.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree, and I think that's very insightful. I think another question that we've just gotten in is how do you kind of invoke or encourage this kind of mindset in your children? In a lot of cases, and just to again kind of echo in on some of the results from the poll, I think a lot of in terms of an age bracket of the audience that we have here today, it's the majority of it is 35 to 50. So probably small families that are starting up with young children, and I think it's interesting to hear also you everyone's experience on that. But just to kind of address this person's question on how to encourage that kind of mindset for children at a young age.
I love the question. Children are the easiest. Why? They're natural at decluttering. Why? Because they grow. They don't fit into what they fit into a year ago, right? They don't want to play with the same toys and games that they did a few years ago because they're too babyish or they're too small and now they've grown up. So children are natural at decluttering. But what happened was in our case, and as I mentioned earlier, I have a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old, is that we used to give away the clothes of the kids and the toys. Well, we did get them involved on the toys part, but for the clothes, we would just give them away. And we didn't involve them. So they weren't aware of what's going on. They just saw that their clothes kept changing because they were growing. But now we involve them in the process. As we're taking clothes out, we're doing it with them as an exercise. It's fun. We're talking about how it's going to impact the lives of other kids who don't necessarily have the same privileges as we do. And now they get excited. And now when they're giving, when they're thinking about their toys, and I see this now, before they used to be a lot more, I want to keep it, I want to keep it, I want to keep it, even though they weren't necessarily using that much. And we're all guilty of that, right? We don't use something. And then when someone says you have to give it away, you go, oh, no, 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 maybe I want to keep it. So they start saying, oh, yes, this can be used by another child. They can enjoy it. We had so much fun with it. So we involve them in the process. We're transparent. We communicate. And so they just became natural, at decluttering. It's so easy for them. And I want to share with you as well, I tried to impose this on my wife, right? Because I saw the benefit it was giving me, but it backfired. because I realized that just because I'm on this journey doesn't mean that she's on it as well. And I need to give her space. So now what I do is I just communicate what I do and the benefits it's bringing me. But now that the kids have got involved, seeing the kids and myself doing it, she got inspired. And now she's also getting into that, and not getting into, she is in that decluttering mode. And she's also every now and again clearing things out. So it's amazing because, your energy fuels the rest of the energy for the other people as well. So it's a great, great question that you asked. And kids are the best at decluttering because they just grow.
Yeah, and I think just as you were talking, just reflecting on some of the other answers from the poll and trying to get some insights on that. I think majority of the audience that we have here today is are men. And I was curious to kind of know from your experience, because typically when we think of decluttering, specifically when it comes to the material world, so like your home space or your family's house or so, we typically think of women kind of leading that exercise. I was curious to know from your experience, is it the same kind of experience for men, right? Do they go through, is it the same thought process? Do they go through it as diligently as others do? And what's kind of the difference from on both ends?
See, I mean, I don't like boxing things into this should be a woman's job or this is a man's job or one should lead and the other. But what I found is I wanted to be lighter. I just wanted to get rid of this excess baggage, if you want to call it that. And as I started getting rid of things, one, my decision-making process became a lot easier because when I'm choosing what I have to wear to work or otherwise, it's easier because I have fewer things to select. I'm not thinking about shopping all the time. I'm thinking about more important things in life, like my family, my work, but, really focusing a lot on myself and my family. So it's your journey, right? It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, a child or whatever you are, but ultimately, if you want to lighten your load and you want to remove that baggage that you're carrying with you. And here's the thing, even if you think I don't have baggage, it's there in your subconscious mind. It's like that pile of t-shirts. If you keep wearing the t-shirts from the top, it doesn't mean that the one on the bottom doesn't exist. It's just that you never got to it and maybe got covered up and it's hidden. But when you clean out your closet, you find it there and you go, oh my goodness, I forgot I even had this t-shirt. So like that, just because it's not in the front of your mind doesn't mean it's not in the back of your mind. It's still in your subconscious. So as you get rid of these things that you own that you no longer need or want, you're clearing up space. And that, again, as I mentioned earlier, is space that you can now fill with whatever you want. Whether it's more family time, whether it's more time to yourself, maybe it's time to try a new activity or something that you used to do that brought you a lot of happiness, like play the piano and you've given it up because you never had the time. Maybe you can bring that back in, whatever it is for you, right? So it's a very personal journey. And if the others in the house can benefit from it, all well and good. But remember, this is your journey. This is for you.
Yeah, and I think I relate to that. And just to kind of wrap up the session, I think we've kind of answered all questions that were asked. I think about 2 years ago, I've moved into, it's the same size of an apartment, but I was very much bothered about the size of, or the amount of storage that I had, because it just allowed me to accumulate more and more things. And I've actually taken the conscious choice of cutting in my storage space in half. And even though I think it's more has to do with big families, like a lot of members in my family didn't get why I was doing this, and that I should be utilizing the space in my house to add more storage space. But once I did it, it was genuinely a more lighter feeling that I had walking into my room and walking into my living room. So I definitely do relate to that urge that you get in terms of wanting to feel lighter.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing. So I'll move on to the next one, which is declutter the body. We're so lucky that we're a species that has such an amazing, I like to call it a machine, right? And if, as you know, any machine that is run well and taken care of, the output is much greater. If a machine is not taken care of well, or it's not greased enough or oiled enough or whatever it might be, it's not going to function as well and the output's not going to be that great. Now, the beautiful thing about the human body is that it's always giving you signs. The question is, are you listening? You know, I used to feel bloating every single day. I used to wake up with a stuffed nose, which used to give me a mild headache in the mornings. I used to get really tired and lethargic during the day at some point and sometimes at night, but I wasn't listening. My body was sending me these messages, but I wasn't listening. I just chose to ignore them and continue in the rat race that I was in. That I'll attend to it later. Work is more important. Money, money, money. That's all that's important. I didn't attend to myself. Little did I know that these were things that could easily be removed if I just started to become more aware and start removing them. So I found out that I was highly intolerant to dairy and eggs. And when I removed these two things from my diet, and I then I worked towards a vegan lifestyle, which is what I live right now. When I removed them from my diet, the bloating stopped immediately. I lost 10% of my body weight. Now, this is not a diet exercise. So, you know, this is just what happened to me. We're all individuals that are different. But the reason why that happened is because all the inflammation, my body was rejecting those foods and it was causing the bloating and the inflammation stopped. So the machine started to work better. So even though I was exercising a lot, I couldn't understand why my body fat was at a high percentage. But as the machine started to decreased at a rapid pace and went from 24% down to 13% over a span of 6 months. And fast forward, I'm also waking up without a blocked nose. I don't have the mild headache. So I'm living a much better life. So the question I ask you is, what foods are you eating? Because you know, you sometimes get up and you go, you know what, I ate something, I don't feel too good. Think about what you just ate. And the next time you feel like that again, you know, and maybe even keep a note of what you ate. See, is there something I ate that was repeated? Maybe there's a particular food type that my body doesn't like. Now, this is not an allergy, right? It's an intolerance. It's just something that for whatever reason, you're having certain gut issues and the food is being rejected by your body, and that's why it's causing various things. I used to break out a lot as well before with acne and things. Again, that was a sign, but I didn't listen. I just thought, this is me. So start listening to your body, start seeing what's happening, and if something is not right, be more aware. Because in my case, it wasn't bad enough that I had to go see a doctor, but it was big enough to be an irritation in my life. And it was with me for over a decade. So some tips that I can share with you, apart from that, with food. During these times, I started looking at the ingredients of everything that we buy. If something comes in a tin, a box, you know, a packet, I start reading the ingredients and ask yourself, is this something that I want to put into my body? Is this something that is going to drain energy and make it harder for this machine to work? Or is it uplifting it and making it, you know, more optimal? I realized that there were many things I was unhappy with. I saw food items in there that are artificial coloring. I saw things with high fructose corn syrup. And there were certain ingredients I couldn't even pronounce. I think the last time I saw some of those ingredients was in my chemistry class. So again, the question is, if I'm having things that are not natural and if they don't look good on paper, then why am I ingesting these items? I used to eat granola bars, healthy, but when I read the ingredients, the first 3 ingredients were different forms of sugar. And I realized there was a lot of sugar in that granola bar, which is probably why it tasted so good. But then I said, okay, can I find a healthier option? So I started looking at the ingredients and I said, you know, I can replace this with another brand, or better still, make it at home. I've started making a lot of things myself. And the second thing that I would say is start replacing the simple carbohydrates with complex carbohydrates, right? Everyone says carbohydrates are bad, but it's the simple carbohydrates that are bad, which are the sugary items, the sugary cornflakes, you know, the white bread where everything has been stripped out. So it's the simple carbohydrates that are bad because they're processed. Have the natural ones, which are not processed and not refined, right? And those are the ones which are going to fuel your body. And the third thing that I want to focus on is sleep. Sleep is the single most effective thing you can do for your brain and body. Sleep is where recovery is happening. Sleep is where mental recovery is happening and physical recovery. So how can you ensure that you get the best night's sleep possible? And this is very important during Ramadan as well, right? Because your routine has completely changed based on the fasting. So here are the tips that I use that help me, and I hope that they can help you as well to get a best night's sleep. I don't eat at least 2 to 3 hours before I go to bed. So I have to finish my last meal at least 2 to 3 hours before I go to bed. Why? Because your body is consuming anywhere from 10 to 30% of its energy in digesting food. Now, the more energy that's being used towards digesting food, which is more in the beginning, the less is going to be used on healing, which is very important for your recovery so that you're energized for the next day. And the second thing I do is I avoid high protein in the evening because protein is harder to break down. Carbohydrates require closer to 10% of your energy. Proteins require up to 30%. So it doesn't mean don't eat any protein, but if you're having a high protein diet at night, more energy goes towards the digestion, less towards the recovery. And then finally, at least 1 hour before going to bed, all devices off and I start dimming the lights in the house. Why? Because a lot of these things emit blue light. You may have heard about this. And when blue light is being emitted, your brain thinks it's still daylight. And so melatonin is not being produced. And when melatonin is not being produced, it's much harder to go to bed. Now, you might say, I work across different time zones. I have no choice but sometimes to use my phone or watch TV or whatever it is. You might say, I can't. If you can't and it's too hard, start with half an hour, start with 20 minutes, start with something before you go to bed to switch everything off and gradually build it up. And the other thing you can also do, if you really must, is you can buy blue light filter glasses. So because my company works across the world, there are certain times where I do have to work in the evening. So then I put these glasses on because they block out the blue light. And that still doesn't affect the production of melatonin. And the last thing that I would say on sleep, and this is really something that you can start after Ramadan, right? Because right now the hours are a little bit changed, but your physical recovery happens from about 10 till 2:30 in the morning. And from 2:30 till 6:30 in the morning is when your mental recovery happens. So you might say, I sleep 7 hours. But if you go to bed at, let's say, 2 in the morning and you wake up at 9, you only had about half an hour of physical recovery, which is why, even though you got a good night's rest, you can still wake up and go, my body is sore. And that's because you didn't have enough time for the physical recovery. So it's very important once, post Eid to start going to bed by 10:30 to get as many hours as you can for the physical recovery as well. Now, the next slide I'm going to show you before we open it up for Q&A is a picture of myself before my decluttering journey began of the body and one, which is more recent. And here, the only difference between these two images is one, I slept better, I eliminated the foods that were harming my body, and I started ensuring I get the right minerals and nutrients and the right vitamins in every single day. But my workout actually went down. I started doing less heavy workouts. I started doing more yoga. So I'm getting away from the heavy weights, but yet my body fat went from 24% down to 13. I became a lot stronger, a lot more agile. So I now again open it up to questions before we move on to decluttering people.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Sahil. And again, thank you for being very open, because I truly believe that's how a lot of us here in the session are going to be able to extract the most value from this. And again, just giving people a chance to kind of write in all their questions and suggestions in the Q&A function. I think as you were kind of talking, I was reflecting on the current period and what's currently happening. And I think the again, from personal experience as well, I think the restrictions that we have with the lockdown is, at least for me, was the best experience or the best chance in order to be able to make these changes. Because by default, ordering out is not necessarily encouraged that much. You try to limit it or completely eliminate it. As well as being able to stay within the house for a longer period of time. I'm starting to kind of cook more. I'm starting to look at the ingredients of what I cook even more, right? Purely by the fact that I'm not necessarily distracted by driving in and out of the office or being around friends or so on and so forth, and a lot of the kind of social obligations. So it's really, for me at least, this current period is the best chance to kind of be able to make those changes. And as they say, the longer you kind of get into these habits, it then becomes a staple of your daily lifestyle. So I definitely see a lot of these changes and a lot of these habits staying once we kind of start to resume our normal or pre-COVID, if you might add, routine. And just kind of addressing one of the questions that we have coming in. I think this attendee is trying to kind of declutter their mind, as well as have a fitness aspect to it. So more in terms of losing weight and trying to kind of have a closer or a better look into the diet and exercise regime that they have. And I think the question is, what do you recommend as the best starting point? And I think a lot of, just to kind of echo on that question, I think a lot of those transitions require a 180 change in routine and lifestyle, which can be challenging, and it can be even in some cases unrealistic to aim for. This person, for example, is using yoga as a starting point, but wanted to also know from you what would be a good starting step in terms of working your way towards that 180-degree transition or change.
No, great question. Now, let me share something before I answer that question. As I mentioned to you, I was already very active before I started decluttering my life. And no matter how hard I tried with my workouts, they were heavy and I was aggressive. I was really working out hard. But because my sleep wasn't as good as it should have been, and because I was eating foods that were harming my body, I still had 24% body fat. And you saw the images. It's not like I look very fit compared to how I look now. So it's not about how I look. I don't really care about the physical appearance, right? I'm not looking for any validation, but it's how I feel. So I always tell people who are looking to have a more fit life is first get the food right? Eliminate the things that are harming you, eliminate things that are processed, and things that are more natural. No matter what diet you have, like if you eat meat, that's fine. I'm not trying to say become vegan, but ask yourself, what is the source of this meat? Is it from an animal that's been injected with all sorts of horrible things? Or is it something that's more natural? Because remember, you're consuming that, right? So the better quality you consume, the better your machine is going to work. So first start monitoring the sleep. It's a little harder during Ramadan, so maybe focus on the food right now. But after Ramadan, get into a better sleep habit and make sure you're getting that recovery. Again, I noticed that my strength increased after I started sleeping better. Not always about the exercise. Everyone focuses, and myself included, it would always be the exercise. Go to the gym, go run, go do this. But it wasn't improving anything because I didn't fix the other areas which are more important. Exercise, when it comes to overall lifestyle fitness, is a much smaller percentage than food and sleep. So start with those. And in terms of exercise and what you can do, you know, there's so much out there. I mean, see what works for you. But again, I would say there's a lot that can be done where you're not injuring yourself, right? So it depends on your body, because certain things, some people get into these boot camps and they get all excited and then they push aggressively, but they don't have experience, they haven't warmed up properly, boom, they get injured. We don't want to get injured. Yoga is great because it's, you know, it's not invasive, it's not going to necessarily harm you, but there's a lot of exercises you can do with just your body weight, right? And you can search for these on YouTube. Now everyone's sharing videos on how they work out. So do what you feel is right. You know, even I would even say invest in a personal trainer for a couple of sessions just to get the ball rolling. You might say it's too expensive for the long term, but if you can invest in yourself just to have maybe 2 or 3 sessions where they put a program together based on your body, because remember, it's not one size fits all. So based on how you are, they're giving you a program, and then maybe check in with them every 2 or 3 months and just pay that little bit for that one session, because you're investing in yourself. Think about how many silly things you're throwing money at. Can you not invest 200 to 300 dirhams for yourself per session and just have maybe 5 sessions a year or 4 sessions a year? I think you can, right? So eliminate sleep, and once you get those under control, start doing the exercise. And for those who are not exercisey people, find something that's fun, right? If you enjoy walking, go for a walk. If you enjoy watching a video with some different type of Zumba or something, which is like dance and exercise at the same time, do that. If it's yoga that you like, do that. Find the thing that works for you, but do something.
Thanks a lot, Sahil. I think that was very insightful and I think definitely relatable to a lot of the members of the audience that we have here today. And it's very interesting to kind of see how the different steps of the bullseye that you've kind of shared previously kind of fit in together. I'm curious and excited to know what's to follow. So I'd love to kind of understand what comes next after you declutter the material world and you declutter your body.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, just as a reminder, I'm sharing with you tools that you can start applying now during times of lockdown or restricted access. There are a lot more tools that are available that I'm not speaking about, because if you can't do them because you're restricted, there's no point discussing it at this stage. So I'm really focusing on things that are simple that you can start applying immediately, right? That's my goal, is that you take away from this at least a few items that you say, okay, I can start this now. So moving forward, moving on to decluttering people. Everyone thinks decluttering people means getting rid of people, right? And for me, it's decluttering that negative space between people. That's what I'm referring to. So it's actually to bring people closer together. Now, there might be some people that just suck you out of your energy when you meet them. And if they're not someone you meet frequently or they're not family, then it doesn't matter, right? You can work towards finding out what's being triggered when they're around, right? Because a lot of us think we're in control, but when we see someone, it's almost like they're pushing a button in us and all of a sudden this emotion comes out, whether it's anger, hatred, jealousy, whatever it might be. So ask yourself, why am I getting these triggers? And say, okay, I'm getting it because of maybe this experience I had in my childhood or whatever it is. Go deep within and resolve it so that when you do see that individual every now and again, which is not frequent, at least they're not affecting you. But let's focus now on the people who are family or who are close friends or colleagues that you care about, but there's that negative space between you. And even if you don't care about them now, you wish the relationship to be better, right? The goal is for those relationships where you wish they were in a better place than they are right now. So one of the things that I always talk about, and this is the nature of this slide, is understand things from the other person's perspective. You see a 6 on this slide. Now, if I draw this on the ground and you're standing in front of me, facing me, you see a 9. Now, you can argue with me till the end of day that it's a 9, and I'm going to argue with you till the end of day that it's a 6. In this particular case, no one is wrong. but we still end up having an argument and a fight. And I'm using a simplistic example, but just to prove this point, all I had to do, or you had to do, was say, you know what? If they're so adamant on this, maybe there's something I'm not seeing. How about I try to see it from their perspective? And once I do that, aha, magic. Now I understand why the person is reacting the way that they're reacting. And I go, huh, okay. So I see from their perspective, that does make sense. I now believe that I don't have the absolute point of view, that there can be multiple viewpoints to a situation. And this also goes very well with unity, right? With when especially in a country like the UAE, where we're a mixed salad of nationalities and religions, it's so easy to just look at it from your perspective because of your beliefs and your viewpoints based on your experience and how you grew up. But if we want to become a tolerant society, it's all very so important to understand it from the other person's perspective, because you're going to share with me something based on your experience of what your knowledge is. And how wonderful would it be for me to ask you, rather than tell you that, no, you're wrong, but ask you, oh, that's interesting. Let me please understand from your perspective, because it's something that I've never heard of, or something that I haven't seen, or I've never thought of myself. So change your perspective and understand the others, right? Now, the next thing I'm going to speak about is framework, because I don't know about you, but in my case, I'm not a big fan of those confrontational discussions, be it with my wife, be it with my colleagues, be it with my family members, my closest friends. And sometimes I just make up the excuse in my mind, oh, you know, it's fine, or that's just the way they are, that's their personality. But what it does over time, it builds this invisible wall between us, and it's affecting our relationship. In fact, in some cases, it even works as a deterrent, because I start assuming in my mind certain things and make up stories in my head that aren't even true. But that's because I didn't clarify something. And because of the stories I kept repeating to myself, I just made them up, and things got worse, right? So create a framework within your own mind, and you can even share it with the other person, which is even better. It's one step further on having those confrontational discussions. But this is, I'm going to share with you my framework, which you can also implement, that really, really, really helps. Now, whenever I enter this conversation, I'm entering it because I care about that relationship and I want it to get better, right? Keeping that in mind, I always ensure that we're in a private space. There's no other people there, because we don't want other people listening in, or we feeling judged, or, you know, looking around to make sure no one's listening. So it's a private space. Phones and other distractions are off, because I want to give my commitment to the other person, whether it's listening to them or sharing my viewpoint. And this, I enter the conversation with a mindset of compassion and love. Before, I used to enter with anger. Now, if I enter with anger, which is a negative state of being, how can I expect to get a great positive outcome? It doesn't make sense. So now I enter the conversation with compassion, with love, with empathy. I enter the conversation and I make the following rules within myself, which I also share. There's not going to be any raising of voices. You're not allowed to point fingers at the other person, but you can express how you feel. Because if I tell you you're wrong, you can get defensive, and then you know, all sorts of we start going the wrong direction. But if I tell you that based on what you did, this is how I feel, you can't question that, because my feeling is my own. I own it. But if I point fingers at you and start saying you this, you that, that's not going to get us anywhere. So talk about how you feel. And the next thing is listen. And you might say, well, I'm a good listener. Well, here's my thing. There's two types of listening. There's the listening where you're kind of listening to what I'm saying, but maybe you're twiddling on WhatsApp right now or on Instagram while I'm speaking, and you're kind of listening to me in the background. That's what a lot of listening happens, right? When someone's speaking, we're listening to the voice in our mind. We're thinking about how to respond to them, or we're interpreting what they're saying. That's not the listening I'm speaking about. The listening that I want is, hey, I'm about to share with you 5 numbers. And if you repeat those 5 numbers back to me in the exact same order and you get it 100% right, not even 1 digit wrong, you're going to win 1,000,000 dirhams. Down goes your phone, the WhatsApp, the social media, whatever distraction you had right now, you're listening because you're like, oh my God, I can win 1,000,000 dirhams. If the relationship matters so much to you, it's worth a lot. So focus on it and listen to what the other person is saying. So that's what I tell myself as well. So when I build this framework and I share with the other person, magic has happened. All these discussions, which in the past could have ended up with a door slamming or anger or, you know, resentment, and then later it would probably involve, why did I do this, and regret. Now I'm entering with a framework, with compassion, love, and empathy. And even if I don't get the result right away, I've noticed that more times than not, the result has been favorable for all parties involved. So I encourage you to start implementing a framework. Stop with the assumptions, stop listening to the voice in your head, and open your mind and say there can be another viewpoint, because mine is not the only one. And this is even more important today in COVID-19, where we depend on helping each other as in society so that we can all grow together and come out of this stronger. So that's my talk on decluttering people. I'd love to open it up to questions and hear any comments, questions that you may have before we move on to decluttering the mind.
Definitely, Sahil. I think just going through some of the questions that we've gotten currently. I think just as a question, how long have you been based here in the UAE, Sahil?
I came to the UAE in July 2007.
Oh, so that's like 13 years.
Yes.
So I think it's the reason why I was asking that is when it comes to kind of the Middle East or the UAE, and a lot of the things that are tied up to social expectations. I think a lot of these hard, I don't want to say hard conversations, but more straightforward or confrontational conversations are frowned upon, in the sense that it's known to have a negative outcome, and I think that's why a lot of people tend to kind of steer away from it. And I think just to kind of address this question, how does one manage a lot of the social expectations and the personal expectations within the current kind of social environment that we're in, to be able to implement such a framework, or to get people to understand such a framework? Is it important to explain to them why you're doing this, or do you try to find some kind of a happy middle?
Look, there's a path in the middle. Again, is you're going back to your old roots, which is compromise or making assumptions in your head or whatever it might be. It's not really getting to the core and resolving it. And if you really care about that relationship, and this is the question, if it matters to you, it's going to come across that way. Because when you talk to them, and like I said, you're not approaching with anger, you're approaching with compassion, with love, with empathy, and you're saying that this relationship matters to me. And I feel that there's something there, there's something in that space between us that's negative. And I know it's hard, but I want to address it because I care, because I want this to be better. Now, if the other person feels the same way, they will open up and have that conversation, because they realize that you're coming from a place of love. You're coming from a place of unity. You're coming from a place of, I want this to become stronger because I love you, I care for you, you matter to me. So I know it sounds difficult, but you know, the Middle East is not so different from the Indian culture. And I grew up in an environment where if the parents told you to do something, you did it. It was a one-way street. It's one-way communication. And I know that's the same for many of you here. We share a lot of similarities, but the new generation is different. The new generation, and all of us that are parents between 35 and 50, which is a bulk of many of the people on this webinar, our children, it's not so much one way as it was with our parents. It's a lot more two-way, right? It's a lot more two-way communication. So why are we scared to have those conversations with the elders in this particular scenario? I've had very difficult confrontational, sorry, I don't want to call it confrontational, but that's how it was playing in my mind. But I had these conversations with my own parents, even during these times of lockdown. But why did I do it? It's because I love them, I care about them. And it's not that we had a bad relationship, but I wanted it to be better. So when they saw that it was coming from a place of compassion and love, and that it was to have a better future for us, even though there were tears and this and that, there was no shouting. And you know, the strength, the bond between us has become stronger. Is that not what you want? Because that's the only reason why you'd be entering this conversation. If it's coming from a place of hatred, you don't need a framework. You just tell the other person, I hate you, you suck, and you leave. Finished. It's a very easy conversation. But it's with the ones where you love. Why are we so scared?
Yeah, and I think just thank you for that. That was very kind of insightful, and I think this a lot of what you're saying today is very much relatable to a lot of our personal experiences on a day-to-day basis. Another question that we've kind of gotten in is how do you decide that this is the right time for me to have this conversation, right? Because like you said, you don't want to reach a point where where there's a lot pent up, right? And so things or your emotions tend to would get the best of you at that time. But also, you don't necessarily want to be having these confrontational conversations left and right on the smallest things. So, just kind of gauging your own emotional meter, what would be some of the thoughts you have in terms of understanding? Okay, this is the time where I need to have a conversation about this, as opposed to maybe I can kind of think this through or sleep on it or so.
Got it. So, okay, I'll share with you what I do. I never, I repeat, never have a conversation like this when either the other person is high on emotion or I am high on emotion. Now, when I say high on emotion, by the way, it doesn't necessarily mean only the negative ones, because even when you're really like too happy and too excited, it may also not be the right time to have the conversation. So make sure, kind of check in with your emotional state once you are fine and your balance between mind and heart. And you can ask them that, look, I'd like to have a conversation whenever you have the time. Please let me know when it's available. If you can speak now, great. And if you prefer to speak later today or tomorrow, like don't leave it open-ended and say, because otherwise they might say next week or next month and then it never happens. Specify within how many days you would like to have the call or have the conversation. Because it's not just about you, it's about the other person as well, right? So you need to make sure that both are ready to have it. But if they forget and they don't get back to you, remind them and just say, look, it's really important. I just really need some of your time. It will only take 15, 20 minutes, but I would love for us to speak. And that's how I approach it, right? Because if you always wait for the perfect time, my question to you is, when is the perfect time for anything?
Yeah, and I think it's very just thinking of going in with that mindset. You're already at ease about the conversation, knowing that the other person has made the time, meaning that they are in the mindset to kind of receive whatever this conversation is about to come up with. I think all of that kind of helps take out a lot of the anxiety that we usually typically have if you're not your typical confrontational person, which I am not personally as well. But yeah, I mean, I think we've kind of covered the questions that we had on this. Just kind of going through the Q&A box and making sure we haven't missed anything. I think one of the interesting things that one of the attendees brought on is that if you wait until your emotions cool down, you tend to get evasive in that case. So you tend to tell yourself, okay, maybe it wasn't such a big deal anyway, all right? Or maybe I could just kind of get over it. So how do you kind of make that commitment to bring up the conversation and have this conversation, even if you're supposed to wait until you're cooled down. And I think the other question, uh, which is how do you manage this with very close family members, where it can, for example, maybe become can affect you emotionally, and how do you kind of approach that? Because again, and I think goes back to our initial question, when it comes to close family members, there's a lot of social and personal expectations that are associated with that relationship. So what's the best way to kind of be clear yet not necessarily aggressive in terms of getting your point across, and making them understand that this is what you need to do and this is what you need to have?
So starting with the first question, um, look, there are moments where I've actually, once emotions have calmed down, where I realize that it was me, right? I'm not perfect. It was me. And I've said, you know what, perhaps I just overreacted. But if it's something that's happening again and again and you keep making up that excuse, then come on. I mean, you need to have that conversation. And again, remember, you're speaking about how you feel, right? You're not pointing fingers at the other person, but you have to have that conversation, because otherwise it's that baggage you're carrying with you and it's affecting you in your day-to-day life. You might not think about it every day, but it's still affecting you and it's hampering you from, growing and getting to new heights. And when it's with family, the example I gave you was, look, the examples I gave you was with my own wife, with my mother, with my father, you know, with my aunt or uncle. I mean, it doesn't get closer than that, right? That's the closest. But again, I'm approaching it with compassion, with love, with empathy, with the mindset that I want to improve and strengthen this bond from whatever state it's in, either negative, okay, or good, and then take it to the next level. And I speak. And the other person, you might be more open, and you might find that the other person is more held back because maybe they've never had that kind of a conversation with you, or they've never had that kind of a conversation with their parent. But that's okay. You have to give someone time. But you at least can do your part. Even if the other person just listens and says nothing, at least how you feel and get it off your chest. And when they see that, and they see that it's coming from a place of compassion and love, maybe temporarily it might affect the relationship, but even when they get time to reflect and think about it, they will see that. And if your actions match your words, which is again with empathy, compassion, love with them, eventually they come through. But if you hold back, and here's a hard situation. If it's a parent, that parent is soon going to pass. And if you don't have that conversation, and then you have the regret for the rest of your life that I should have said it, are you going to be able to live with yourself? And if that's going to affect you till the day you die, which is, a guarantee for all of us, right? So I don't want to sound morbid, but it's one of those things that you want to cleanse yourself, right? And you're not cleansing with anger. You're not cleansing trying to hurt the other person. You're cleansing with love. I know it requires strength. And maybe you don't have the most difficult conversation first. If you have 2 or 3 or 4 conversations that are difficult, choose the one that you think is going to be the easiest first and start there. And once you see the results, that itself is going to give you the momentum to have the next conversation and the next. And then finally, that one which you thought was impossible and way, way too hard. Because deep down, we're all loving human beings. We care about each other. We want to see happiness in the other's eyes. And we know that. So it's all about finding that inner strength.
That was very, I think, touching, just to kind of hear. We don't necessarily kind of talk very openly about these things, and I think the fact that you're kind of talking to us about it, and sharing a lot of the insights you have kind of forces us to kind of think, because when we don't say it out loud, we tend to put it in the back of our mind and not necessarily fully confront ourselves with a lot of these situations and a lot of these insights. So genuinely, thank you for that.
Pleasure. So are there
I think we've kind of answered everything that came in through the Q&A, and we're good to go for the last bit.
Okay, so declutter the mind. I'm just going to share with you something that I do every single morning. And there are a lot of things we can't control, right? Because once we start a day, I mean, if I talk about my typical day before, I wake up, the kids are waking up at the same time. Like I wake up maybe 5 minutes before them. I wake them up, get them ready, feed them breakfast, drop them to school, come back, do my workout, go to the office, work, come back, spend time with the kids, put them to bed, spend some time with the wife, some time with parents, socializing a little bit, go to bed. And repeat. That was my life, right? I'm just running. I didn't have much time to myself. Where was I spending time with myself? And I realized how important it was to spend time with me, because we spend the most time in our life with ourselves, right? So how about we get comfortable with ourselves? And I realized that in order to do that, I need to be, the best time for me to do it is the morning, because in the middle of the day, work can fluctuate. In the evenings, plans can change. But if I do it in the morning and at the start of my day, not only am I energizing myself, but it's also something that I can control to a large extent. So I make sure that I wake up an hour before the rest of the family. So while they're sleeping, no distractions, I can do my morning routine. Now, there are a couple of no-nos that I want to highlight before I get into the morning routine. Number one, you're not allowed to hit that snooze button. And if you don't use an alarm and you wake up naturally, you're not allowed to just snooze mentally and lie in bed for the next half an hour before you get out. Why? That's the first action you did in the day. Is that how you want to set the tone for the rest of the day? That I'm a snoozer? Because that's what the subconscious mind is thinking, that this man or woman is a snoozer, right? I don't want that. So no snoozing. The second no, no mobile phones, no newspaper, no tablet, no TV, nothing before you've done the morning routine. I was guilty of this. I used to, my arm would shoot out when I wake up, grab the phone, and then I'm looking at it, I'm squinting, my eyes are barely open, but I'm still trying to read things on my phone. How addicted was I? Now I charge my phone outside of my bedroom. It's not even allowed in the bedroom. I don't want it anywhere near me. Why? Especially during times now of COVID-19, there are a lot of messages on WhatsApp, on social media, in the news that are going around that are negative, right? This many more cases, this many more deaths, blah, 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 blah. Now, is that the first thing that I want to read in the morning? Something negative that puts me in a negative state of being? No, I don't want that. Because when I'm in a negative place, it takes me a long time to get back positive. And imagine how that's affecting life with my kids, with my wife, with my parents, with my work, with myself. Am I going to be as productive? No. So all that is aside until I finish my morning routine. So what does my morning routine consist of? Number one, movement. We've been lying down for many hours, and I can't speak for all of you, but in my case, my heart rate drops about 25% while I'm sleeping. And it should be something similar for all of you. So I move just to get the blood flowing again. Now, because I practice yoga, I walk around the apartment, walk around the house, do some star jumps, do push-ups, do anything that you want, just move. And move for 10 to 15 minutes, just get the blood flowing again. The second thing I do, and again for me, because I do yoga, I do pranayam, which is breath work in yoga. I'm taking deep breaths, but you don't need to follow the yogic practice. You can still take deep breaths. And these are the ones where you breathe from the belly, not from the chest, the belly. So put your hand on your belly, and as you're breathing in and out, you should feel your hand moving forward and backwards. That's the belly breath that I'm speaking about, not the one where your chest goes up and down. Take deep breaths for 10 to 15 minutes. Why? Again, you're getting oxygen to your cells. You're energizing your body. The third thing that I do is I go into meditation. There's so many different types of meditation. There's guided meditation, there's chanting, there's silence meditation, and so forth and so forth. Plenty out there. Try them. See which one works for you. Some people have told me, oh, I tried it once, it didn't work. Well, guess what? When you were crawling and you tried walking and you fell, did you stop and say, I'm going to crawl for the rest of my life? No. You walked and then you started running. So give it a fair shot and try the different types of meditation. Find the one that works for you. And if for whatever reason they all fail, just sit in silence. Just reflect. Just be alone. Spend that time in deep thought with yourself. And after you've done that, the last thing I suggest is journaling. So what I write in my journal, I'm going to share with you. I write 3 things that I'm grateful for. For example, this morning I wrote, I'm grateful to be living, with my family, because many families have been separated. I'm grateful to get, meals on the plate, because I also know that in some countries, it doesn't matter if you have money or not, but food has become a struggle. And I'm grateful that I'm still able to do my morning routine outside, that it's not the summer yet. Listen to the sounds of nature. I hear so many more birds every morning. The next 3 things I write about are 3 things I'm excited about. So again, I'll share what I wrote this morning. I was excited to speak to this organization. Before this, I spoke to Hewlett-Packard. I was excited about that. And the third thing is I'm excited about family time, because Thursday evenings is family time with the kids where we organize activities. I was excited about that. The next thing I wrote was a positive affirmation. You can search positive affirmations on the web. Hundreds of out there, but find the one that resonates with you. Today I wrote, I have the power to change my life for the better, to get it right and get the desired results. And after I've gone through this, I go through a process of forgiveness. I forgive everyone out there in case someone hurt me or harmed me. I ask for forgiveness in case I hurt or harmed anyone out there. And then I finish the journaling with the sentence, which any of you that have young kids and watch SpongeBob may recognize, today is going to be the best day ever. So now that I've completed this morning routine, I am alive, my body is moving, I've meditated, so I'm centered between mind and heart, and I've journaled, which has made me very happy and uplifted me and put me in a very positive place. Now, some negative news now. You're going to knock me down a little bit, but you're not going to knock me out, right? I'm not going to collapse to the floor. I'll just get hit a little bit, which is fine because my energy thing that I would, would really encourage each and every one of you to do. I'm sharing how I do it. If you want to mix it up and do it in a different order because you prefer to do things in a different order, that's fine, but do something. But start, because there's nothing like starting each day with high energy. It's incredible. It affects how you feel, how you are with other people, how much you can get done in a day. I'm getting so much more done as a result of this. I have more time now. Before I used to be the running, like the hamster on the wheel, just running. Now I don't have to run. I have time to read books. I have time to watch webinars. I have time to, think and be with myself, which I didn't have before. It's because I'm more energized. I've got rid of the baggage I had in my past. I'm more focused. And this is what you can achieve as well. So before I complete, I'd like to share one more thing with you that has helped me a lot. And it's this concept that I came across where someone told me, there's no reason to worry in life. And I said, hey, you're crazy. How is that even possible? And he said, let me explain. Do you have a problem? No. Okay, nothing to worry. Do you have a problem? Yes. Can you do something about it? Yes, I can. So then go ahead and do it. Then you don't need to worry because whatever the issue was, you're working towards resolving it. And if there's nothing you can do about it, then why are you worrying? Because worrying about it is not going to change the situation. So for example, when they close the borders in lots of countries, I can't travel. So why am I going to be worried about not traveling? Because it's not going to change anything. So I know this sounds really simplistic, but anything in your life, you can break it down into things that you can control and do something about versus the items that you can't control and do nothing about. So separate them out. So you stop worrying about the things you have no control, and the things that you do, put an action plan in place on how you're going to get it resolved and do something about it, and hence your worrying disappears. So again, a simplistic but very effective methodology. So as I close, I want to share with you one of my favorite quotes is the first step in crafting the life you want is to get rid of everything you don't. Change your perspective and look at how you can remove things from your life so that you can run faster and start to fly. So I leave you with one question to really reflect on is what clutter is holding you from greatness? I'm open to questions, but I thank you for your time. These are my contact details. You can follow me on social media. You can email me, reach out to me. I'm always giving things away for free because I believe in sharing. So feel free, but I'm open to questions on decluttering the mind and open to any questions you may have forgotten to ask before as well that you'd like to ask now. Please take this opportunity.
Thanks a lot, Sahil. And I was actually just about to ask you on how you would like people to kind of reach out if that's possible after the session. So thanks a lot for sharing those details. Just as a note for everyone, we do put up these webinars up on YouTube. So typically this one would be available on YouTube by next week. So stay tuned on our social media. Once we kind of have this uploaded, we'll let you know and we'll announce it. And just to kind of address the last thing that we were talking about, I think with everything that has been kind of going on over the past 3 months, I know that I've seen it not just in my behavior, but a lot of close friends and family, which is kind of a lack of presence in the moment, right? Because maybe there's a lot of changes that are happening that are hard to cope up with. And so, for example, for me, the reaction was to dive in deep into my work, right? And I was completely consumed with that. I think for the first month, I didn't necessarily kind of sit back and reflect on how I'm feeling with a lot of these changes that are happening, or how is this affecting my relationship with my family or my health, or so on and so forth. And I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on some of the tools that you shared and how can we use them to be more present in our day. I can see the journaling exercise definitely being a big part of that, but wondering if there were any other kind of tips or techniques that you use or you would recommend just to kind of help us not necessarily kind of evade what we're currently facing in terms of changes and in terms of the situation with COVID-19. And either diving deep into either work or fully focused on family, not focusing on yourself. I know a lot of mothers also with distance learning kind of kicking in, a lot of their energy and time is being thrown into that. So just want to kind of get your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. So look, again, the time in the, that time in the morning is so important because that sets that sets the ball in motion for the rest of the day. So if you start your day on a high, that's going to really help you get through your day, right? And then using this whole concept of what should I worry about and what I shouldn't. I mean, look, while the thing is being resolved that you are taking action on, you may be worried about it, but once you've set the wheels in motion, again, there's not much to worry about because you've already taken, you've taken the steps you need to take. So follow those for sure. And the third is, it's like you said earlier, right? It's you're using this, you've changed your lens and you're saying, okay, let me start cooking more at home. Let me start looking at what I'm consuming. So use this time to really reflect on your life and look at which areas would you like to improve and work on them, whether they're on relationships with the framework that I shared, whether it's removing clutter from your life. Because if you looked at this as an opportunity, all of a sudden the situation is not as bad as it seems. I mean, look, as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm an entrepreneur. My company works with hotels around the world. I get money if my hotels generate business. And you can only imagine how much business these guys are generating. It's close to nothing. My cash flow is a disaster, but can I do anything about it? No. And whatever steps I could do to save my company in terms of cost reductions, without firing people, by the way, I've done. So I've done what I can. You know, we've projected out the cash flows where we're making sure that we can get through this. And we have another step in place in case things don't improve over the next 30 to 60 days. But I've done that. But I'm also now looking at this as an opportunity. I'm writing a book right now, and I'm like, okay, I've got more time to write the book. I was starting to lag behind. Let me use this as an opportunity to finish my book. Let me use this as an opportunity to improve certain relationships. Let me use this as an opportunity to go through my closet again, which I did. Let me use this as an opportunity to start replacing things in our kitchen. And because there were certain things I trusted, like I trusted Nutella being a great product, but when I looked at how much sugar it has, I said, oh my goodness, I'm feeding this to my children. This is like poison. I started making Nutella myself. There's lots of these ingredients recipes on the internet. So I'm using this opportunity to do good because I changed my lens. And I said, you know what? Let me use this and focus on these are the areas I want to focus on, rather than, oh my God, disaster, my company, everything is over. Nothing's going to get better. There's no benefit there, right? I mean, it's every day is not going to change. It's the same. We have to wait till maybe a vaccine or a cure is out or something. I don't know. But what I do know is I have the time to improve many areas of my life, and that's what I'm doing right now. So I'm feeling great. And that's something that we can all focus on rather than only looking at the negative.
Definitely. And I think just another question that kind of came across is any recommendations on meditation and meditation classes that are live that people can attend? Do you host any on any of your social media channels? If anyone is interested in meditation, where can they go?
So look, I don't do any meditation sessions. What I can recommend is there are some apps that are really good, or some websites. You can go on the website or the app. One is Heartfulness, right? It's a very, very good one. They even offer free one-on-one meditation through a webinar, not a webinar, but like on Zoom or something, if I'm not mistaken. They're a very large institution worldwide, which have a very strong reputation. Another one is Gaia, Gaia. They have some good meditation on there. So these are the two that I would personally recommend that you can look at. And then I'm also a big fan of sound healing. It talks about because all your cells have energy, and the frequency of the sound affects the energy in the cells and helps to push out negativity and helps you heal. So you can even search sound healing, and there are quite a few sound healing sessions being done on YouTube and on social media by various people where it's very easy. You lie down with a blanket and an eye mask and you just listen. But it's very soothing and relaxing. And for me, I love it because it's something that my kids enjoy as well. So we do it as a family. Try to get them involved as well. I mean, even the meditation, we do it with the family as much as we can. Now, they may not sit the whole way through with me, but even if they sit for 10-15 minutes, that's already amazing. But yeah, so Heartfulness, Gaia, and you can even look up sound healing on various social media channels. And if I do know some people who do sound healing who are really good. You have my contact details. Just reach out to me and send me a message. I can always send you their names. I just don't know their link off the top of my head.
Thanks a lot for that, Sahil. I'm just making sure to write these on the chat function for everyone to kind of reference. And that's Heartfulness, Gaia,
Yeah.
and healing. So I'm just typing that up into the chat function, and you guys can kind of refer to that for anyone that's interested in meditation. Another question that we've kind of gotten is, do you think how can this methodology particularly work for older people? My parents are both 75 plus. They need this. However, I can see that this is something that's challenging for them. Do you have kind of extra tips on how to kind of communicate this or get this across for people of older age?
I'm laughing because I'm in a similar boat, right? So that's why I'm laughing, because I resonate 100% with that question. Look, everyone is on their own journey, right? And you can't impose something on someone else. That being said, you can certainly share what you do and the effect it's having on you and request for someone to try, right? And that's how I'd approach it, because when someone sees an improvement in you, they're usually curious to understand, what is your secret? What have you been doing that has affected you in such a positive way? So that's what I do. I'm always sharing, right? And that's why I also do these webinars. But I share with family and close friends, and that usually results in more questions. And then many times they'll be like, "Oh, can you suggest something that I could try?" And then I suggest it. But even if they don't, I just reach out and I say, "Look, you might want to try this, and I'd be more than happy to share with you some links or apps or whatever that can help. Just let me know." So you've opened the door, and you've even maybe nudged them a little bit, but you can't push, because everyone is on their own journey, and we have to respect that. Even when I was started mine and I tried to push it on everyone around me because I saw the positive benefits, it backfired because they weren't ready. But as I kept sharing and they saw the progress, they've started, and now every member of the family is somewhere along that line, either at the early stage or progress quite a bit. And it's amazing. It's amazing to see everyone just evolve. So I hope that helps to answer the question.
Yeah, I think it definitely does. Thank you so much, Sahil. Today's session has been quite different. I think we try to kind of keep these webinars as diverse as possible, and I think this is definitely as diverse as it gets, far away from other more technical webinars that we run. So I wanted to kind of thank you for being able to kind of dedicate the time to give us those insights and add value to a lot of the challenges that we're facing on a day-to-day basis. And I'm sure this was very much valuable for the audience as well. So a special thank you from me on behalf of Shira, as well as behalf of the audience. And I think we have your kind of contact details. So again, if anyone has anything that they'd like to share or ask, inquire specifically about, feel free to reach out to Sahil, as well as to us if you have any questions about these weekly webinars. Thank you. Any kind of final words, sending people off onto the beginning of their weekend, as they say?
So I'll share a story, which is the final message. And the final message it goes like this. The sailor went to the captain asking for his pay. And the captain said, "Come tomorrow and I'll give you your gold coins." So the sailor got excited. The next day when he woke up and he went back to the captain, says, "Captain, captain, please, can I have my gold coins?" And the captain said, "Hey, didn't I tell you tomorrow?" So tomorrow never comes. Let's not procrastinate, and let's start today. You've been given some great tools that are tried and tested. Don't try to do everything at once. Pick the ones that resonate with you the most, but start today.
Thanks a lot, Sad. That was lovely to hear. So again, thank you very much for today, and thank you for everyone that kind of tuned in and carved out this time from their day to listen to this. And we hope that this kind of helps you with the next while, and even post the lockdown to kind of bring about small and effective changes to your life. Thank you, everyone, and hopefully we'll see you next week for our regular weekly webinars. Thank you, Sahid.
Thank you.